So I'm Simon Gray. I'm the Programme Manager for the Fish in School Hero Programme run by the Food Teachers Centre, funded by the Fishmongers Company. And today we're at Leith's Cookery School in London, and we're here to work with Ryan, who's going to cook up a fantastic recipe using this Megrim or Cornish sole. This Cornish sole has been funded by Ocean Fish. They've sourced and funded it, and it's going to go out to schools in the South East and Kent area to use within their cookery lessons in school. I'll now hand you back to Ryan, who's going to take you through this fantastic recipe.
I'm Ryan from Leith's, and in this skills video I'm going to show you how to prepare, cook and serve a bruised Megrim, also known as Cornish sole. For this recipe you will need a green board, chef knife, blue board, fish filleting knife and scissors, a roasting tray for the vegetables, a baking tray for the fish with baking parchment, and a palette knife and cutlery knife, and also some bowls of various sizes. The ingredients we need for this recipe are 1 to 2 Cornish sole or bruised Megrim, half a fennel bulb, 2 tomatoes, 50 grams of cherry tomatoes, some Maldon sea salt, 2 tablespoons of water, 1 tablespoon of sherry vinegar, 1 garlic clove, and 1 tablespoon of light olive oil. At Leith's, we always train the students what to look for when buying a fresh fish. Flatfish come in different shapes and sizes depending on the breed. So what we're looking at here is a fish that has 4 fillets in total, 2 fillets on top and 2 fillets on the bottom. Flatfish generally live towards the bottom of the sea, known as demersal fish. They start off their life with eyes either side, and one eye will migrate round to the same side as the other. In terms of identifying a freshness of a fish, what we teach is for 5 key things. We're looking for eyes that are clear and prominent. We're looking for a fish that generally doesn't have any damage to the flesh, scales or fins. Flatfish also want to have a good amount of natural slime. We're looking for gills to be vibrant pink and red, which shows good levels of oxygenation still. And we want to have a fish that has a natural sea smell rather than a particular fishy smell itself. The techniques I'm going to show you how you can prepare a whole flatfish ready for roasting by itself, and then removing the fillets afterwards to serve with the vegetables and aromatics. The first step is to preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius before we start to prepare the vegetables. We're going to half and thinly slice the fennel along the length. We're going to quarter and de-seed the tomatoes, and we're going to half the cherry tomatoes. To prepare the fennel, I'm going to start by removing some of these fronds. Sometimes they have lots on, sometimes they have just a few, and these can be reserved to garnish the dish at the end. So I'm going to put those to the side. We now want to remove the woody tips from the very end of the fennel, so just trimming off a very small amount of that. And any of those offcuts could be discarded or could be used in a vegetable or a fish stock. I'm also going to remove this first outer layer. It's usually maybe a little bit fibrous and also can be a little bit gritty or muddy, so that I'm also going to discard. And you could wash it and you can discard it or put it into a stock. I've given the fennel a quick rinse just to remove any dirt or mud, and we're now going to get this sliced into thin length pieces. I'm now going to halve the fennel lengthways, directly down the middle. I'm going to remove the more woody and fibrous core. So to do this, I'm just going to make a V-shaped cut, just to remove that very central piece. I'm doing exactly the same on that second piece there. Like so. I'm now going to sit the fennel onto the flat edge just to give some good stability, and I'm going to take some thin slices across the whole length of the surface. And we're looking for as thin as we can get, so even and uniform slices, but about 1 millimeter thick where possible. Fennel is going to give you a lovely, fresh, aromatic and aniseed-style flavor. It's going to mellow in with the sherry vinegar and water. but still keeping that lovely crisp crunch to it. Just create a flat edge on that last piece, just so it becomes a bit more stable. I'm now going to repeat the process and do exactly the same process with my second half of the fennel bulb. We're now going to place it into the bowl, ready to mix in the other ingredients. The next step is to prepare the tomatoes. To do this, we're going to remove the stem, the stalk, and we're going to take the tomatoes into quarters. And the last step is to then remove the seeds. So to do this, I'm going to sit it on the curved edge. I'm going to bring the knife horizontal and just removing that very central part of the seeds like so. I'm now going to continue with all of the tomato quarters before we then mix them into the fennel. I'm going to remove the cherry tomatoes from the stem and then cut them into halves ready for cooking. I'm going to add them to the bowl with the other tomato quarters and fennel. The last part is to prepare the garlic. To do this, I'm just going to remove the woody end piece. I'm going to peel it. I'm going to sit the garlic on a flat edge, and then we're just going to use that rolling chop to very thinly slice it like so. With the end bit, just careful of your fingers. Make sure you tuck them in really well, and if you need to, just discard that last bit. We're going to add this into the tomatoes and fennel. And this is then ready to mix together and infuse all those flavors. Now the vegetables are prepared, we're going to dress with some salt and pepper, olive oil, and sherry vinegar. So we're going to pour over that sherry vinegar. That's going to give you a lovely acidity. It's going to help to mellow that crunchy fennel. A bit of olive oil. And that's going to give it a little bit of richness. And then seasoning of the vegetables to bring out all those flavors. And lastly, a crack of fresh black pepper. We're now going to give this a good mix together. It's going to allow all those flavors to infuse, mellow that crunchy fennel, ready to assemble with the fish. I'm going to place the vegetables that I have lightly marinated into the roasting tray. I'm just going to spread them nice and evenly so they can get a light bit of color and caramelization as they soften and become nice and tender. I'm now going to place the vegetables into the higher part of the oven, and then we'll have a check of these after about 15 minutes just to see how they're getting on. Before I start to prepare my fish, we just need to get the baking sheet ready. To do this, I have got a piece of baking parchment cut to an appropriate size for the tray, and we're going to drizzle over a generous amount of oil. And using a pastry brush, we're just going to spread an even layer of the oil across the baking sheet. And we're now going to season the base of that baking sheet with salt and pepper, and this is going to help to season the bottom of the fish. Remember to keep the oil, salt, pepper and pastry brush close by, just to be able to finish the fish before it goes into roast. To prepare the Cornish sole, the first thing I'm going to do is to start to trim away some of these edge frill pieces here. We're also going to trim away a little bit of that end tail, just to neaten it up slightly. So starting towards the base of the tail end, I'm just going to follow this line all the way up just to neaten off some of those edge frill pieces all the way up towards the head. I'm going to turn the fish round and do exactly the same on the other side. The reason we're doing this is because a fish roasted whole like this would usually go out to the customer and presented whole before removing of the fillet. So we just want it to look really nice and neat before this happens. Like so. We're going to trim off this top fin. And we just need to turn the fish over to check for anything on the base. So what we need to do now is to remove the head. So we're going to follow this natural shape and curve around. So to do this, we're just going to snip in. And just curving round, making sure that we don't waste any of that flesh. The next step that we need to follow is to be able to remove any of the roe. And you can see the roe, which is this dark piece here just running underneath. So to be able to do this, I'm actually going to turn the fish vertically on the board. I'm just going to make a very small incision just out by where the frills were, just to release that skin. And that will just give us access to where the roe is, like so. Sometimes you can hook your finger in and release it. And if you're having difficulty, we can always make a slightly bigger incision. So I'm just going to release out towards the fish with the sharp part of the knife. I'm just going to encourage that roe out. So being nice and careful, you can just see the roe sliding out from that top part, like so. We're going to discard that. And then we can do exactly the same thing with the piece underneath. So I'm just going to make a brief incision. Just removing that very last bit. I'm also going to trim down a little bit further from the head, just to neaten up and remove a few of those extra bones. What we can also do is just to make sure there's no residual guts of the fish or any bloodlines to remove, and just to make sure it all looks nice and clean. We're now going to turn the fish back over, and all of the preparation is done and we're ready to roast. We're going to drizzle some oil on top, and just using the pastry brush again just to get a nice even coating. And this is going to help to give a bit of moisture and flavour, but also to get a good caramelisation. It's been 15 minutes, so I'm going to bring the vegetables out. And we're just going to have a bit of a stir, and also just to check to see how they're getting on in terms of tenderness. My vegetables are now looking tender and with a very light bit of caramelization. If your vegetables need more cooking, this is the stage where you can put them back in and also start to roast the fish. I'm going to place my vegetables on the sides just to sit, and then I'll put them back in for the last couple minutes of the fish cooking just to reheat them. I'm now going to place the fish into the oven for approximately 8 to 10 minutes. And allow that to start to roast. It's been 8 minutes. We're now just going to pop the veg back in for 2 minutes just to reheat so it's hot. It's now been 10 minutes of cooking time. So I'm going to bring the veg out, which is now hot again, and the fish as well. We need to make sure that the fish is cooked. So there's a few ways of being able to tell this. You can start to see that all the fish at the head end is going nice and opaque, and there's no translucency or deep bloody colours to it. We also should be able to, when we start to prepare this, is the frill bones should remove nice and easily. And then we should also, when the fish has been filleted, to start to see that it's flaking as well. To prepare the fish ready for plating, I'm now going to remove the frill bones that run just up alongside the flesh here. I'm then going to remove the fillets onto a plate, keeping the skin on. The skin with the seasoning and the oil will be delicious to eat, but if you would rather not to eat it, then you could just then leave it behind. As you can see, the frill bones are starting to release nice and easily, which is a very good indication that it is cooked. And just following this line up just to remove those. I'm now going to do the same process just on the other side. I'm now just going to use the palette knife just to separate down the very center of those two top fillets, like so. And now, keeping the palette knife very horizontal, I'm going to start to slip it underneath the top fillet, but just above that central frame, like so. The fillet lifting away really easily and cleanly like this is a good sign that it is nicely cooked. Now that I've lifted this first fillet off, I'm going to place it onto the plate skin side up for presentation. It will also make it easier should you wish to peel it away during eating. Megrim is a very delicate fish, so don't worry if it starts to break very slightly. I'm now going to turn the tray round just to make it a little easier. This is quite a delicate process. I'm actually just going to release the fillet from that central spine a little bit before I slide in this time at the tail end, and keeping that palette knife nice and horizontal, going underneath that fillet, but just above the frame with the bones. Like so. And then we can also lift this fillet on and place it just next to the one before, like so. I'm now going to plate an appropriate portion of the vegetables as well. So while doing this, we're thinking about the balance of amounts of fennel and tomato on the plate. We also want to think about getting some neatness, some height as well, but still showing off that lovely fish with the skin on top. So I'm just going to place a little bit more fennel. And then with the tomatoes, thinking about odd numbers, balanced the amount of fennel, and getting a little bit of height there as well, like so. The next stage is to remove that central frame. So just starting at the head end, at the very top, like so, just starting to lift the frame up and supporting of that palette knife underneath, like so. And as you can see, that central frame pulls away very nicely, all the way down to the tail, at which point that can be discarded. I'm now going to do a second plate. So using that palette knife again, just to very gently slide under that smaller fillet. I'm going to place that onto my plate. This time I'm going to go for a slightly different presentation. So I'm going to place some filling on before the second bottom fillet. And just going at a different angle so you can still see some of that lovely fish underneath. And then finishing with just a little bit more of that roasted vegetables. So building some layering, building some height, and getting the right balance of portion of veg to fish as well. There we have our 2 plates of roasted Cornish sole with our fennel and tomatoes. I'm just going to finish with a couple small sprigs of our fennel fronds on each, which are going to help to give a bit of extra flavour, but also giving a little pop of green, vibrant colour to the plate as well. Thinking about those presentation rules of odd numbers, just so it looks more pleasing to the eye. I'm just going to finish the plates with a final little drizzle of olive oil. And the tiniest pinch of just some flaked sea salt. As you can see, we've got 2 plates of exactly the same dish, but just presented in a slightly different way. So this one you can see the fillets are skin side up and horizontal next to one another, and then the veg just slightly off center, matching that horizontal line. And this one, we built more of a layering between the fillets and the vegetables as well, just to give maybe a bit more height, and you can see that lovely vibrant whiteness of the flesh of the fish. So both 2 lovely presentations, but just different. It's always good to have an idea of how you're wanting to present the dish before you plate it, but thinking about those key rules of portion size, height, and balance of colour and texture. In this video, I've shown you how to prepare, roast, fillet, and present Cornish sole with fennel and tomato.